All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Tom Shamborn with Instructional Technologies. This morning, wanted to thank everybody for showing up. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about ProTread and how you can use it to assign lessons, how to create some custom groups, how to do some reporting on those groups, and then we're going to, at the end, talk about a few ideas for those custom groups. So some quick introductions. I'm the guy at the bottom there with the cheesy grin. My name is Tom Shamborn. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Instructional Technologies. With me, I've got the person who you really want to hear from, who's Aaron Purvis. He's our CIO. And then just coincidentally in the room, if you hear some coughing and laughing in the background, you've got Rich Brown and Jim Voorhees, our head of sales and CEO, respectively. Just a few housekeeping notes about this webinar. We're not going to be using the questions or chat function just due to time constraints. We want to make sure we get through everything. That said, if you do have questions along the way, please just put them into an email, and I'll be sharing our email addresses at the end, and you can just fire those questions off to us. The other thing too is you all are on mute, and hopefully I'm not. Otherwise, I'm sure somebody would notify me. So that means we can't hear you. Again, and that's just to kind of keep the audio controls easier and to make sure that we are respectful of everybody's time. I know everybody here is real busy. And the last thing is the webinar is being recorded, and so we will be sending out a link afterwards. So if you feel like you want to share this with other people on your safety training or management team, you're more than welcome to do so. So let's talk a little bit about assigning training. And I'm going to keep my part real short because, again, the person you really want to be hearing from is Aaron. But assignments, the reason that we're doing this webinar is that assignments let you really easily deploy your training. That means you can set the expectation with your managers as well as your drivers for having frequent, regular training. And frequency, as you can see from this chart here, improves your safety. Now, this chart is one that we did where we looked at how many training sessions our customers were doing per driver per year, and then we looked at their unsafe driving basic. So you can see those companies that were doing just 1 or 2 training sessions per year were averaging about 28.2 on their unsafe driving basic in their CSA score. By the way, the industry average for everybody is about 50 some odd. So just simply doing a little bit of training gets you a long way. But when you get up to near monthly training, you can see that your unsafe driving basic score is about half of what it is if you're just doing annual or semi-annual training. And as I once had to remind a reporter from one of our esteemed trade publications, a lower score is better. So why assign training? Again, it makes it easier to have your drivers actually do the training without actually griping about it. So why? Well, you can see here on this slide, it's about relevance and frequency. When you're assigning training to these different groups, you can have it be specific to a location. Say you're going to assign winter driving to your folks in Montana, but maybe not to your folks down in Atlanta. Wait, that's probably a bad joke to make this year. All right, sorry. You can make it specific to their jobs, such as forklifts, medium-duty trucks, tankers, hazmat, a piece of equipment, again, such as a forklift or a lift gate, or even just, again, a season, winter driving, summer driving, and things like that. And when you get that relevance to the driver, they know that it's not just some box that you're asking them to check. They know that it is something that actually matters to them, to their job, to their safety. And then the other thing, like we saw on that previous chart, is the frequency. Training that happens monthly or even quarterly, it's a regular reminder that the driver is expected to be professional. It's the mere act that the fact that you're asking them to do it regularly means it's important. It's the same thing as logs, as checking MPG, cleaning off rear view mirrors, and changing wiper blades. The things that you do frequently matter, and training, safety, and efficiency are things that actually matter. So now I'm going to just talk through a few little things about how groups and assignments are currently being used. Currently, about 66 of our clients are using at least one lesson. The biggest user in terms of one of our clients has 13 different groups. That means they've created groups for orientation, for their Montana group, for hazmat, for tankers, different things like that. On average, clients assign 24 different lessons. So of those 66 folks, 66 different clients, they are assigning, on average, 24 different lessons across those different groups. And it's not just groups. You can also assign lessons company-wide, but you may not be surprised to learn, based on what we talked about relevance, that 5 times more lessons are assigned to groups as opposed to company-wide. So marketing has done its thing. So now we're going to hand it off to, again, the person you really want to hear, which is Aaron. So now we're going to drop this guy down and let Aaron do this. And yes, you can see we use Macs.
Yes, we do. Hello, everyone. As Tom said, my name is Aaron Purvis, and I'm the Chief Information Officer at ITI. What I'd like to show you today is basically the system that we built to help you manage your groups, your assignments, getting the lessons out and those assignments out to your users. And there's lots of different ways to do that. And what we've done is tried to build the simplest system we can that's the most effective and the most powerful for you. We're constantly, in fact, I'll add this now, we're constantly updating and changing our system. We're trying to improve it, and we do it based on feedback that we get from individual users. So if you see things that you think you would like to be able to do with the system, or you see areas for improvement, please let us know. We'll have email addresses at the end because we like that feedback. Everything we do is based on client feedback. We really want to meet your needs. Today, specifically, I'd like to walk you through a few things. We're going to add and manage users and groups in the system. We're going to assign some training, and then we're going to generate some training reports. This on the screen right now is the admin interface. I've already logged in, and this is what an admin user will see within the ProTread system. You have basic reporting, reports menu, and some compliance reports that we can generate. And compliance ties specifically into the group and assigned training that we do. You can see a monthly usage snapshot, that sort of thing. What I'd like to go to first, though, is managing users. By managing users, we can do two things. We can manage users, and we can also manage the groups that those users belong to, and then that gives us the capability to assign training to users, groups, and site IDs, or company-wide, essentially. Let's start out with managing users. Of course, I can search for all of my users in the system, but I can also add users to the system. User entry is rather simple. You type in a user ID, and user ID isn't specific to our system, it's specific to yours, meaning that we don't assign a user ID to users, we let you do that. They can use an existing ID that they have already, a logbook ID, an employee number. Some companies use SAP. There's lots of different systems. So we tried to build a system, again, that's responsive and flexible to your needs and doesn't dictate that the driver or the employee remember one more user ID to log into a system. In this case, I'm just going to make one. We'll just say it's a demo user, and I'm going to give it a demo user. user, or let's see, demo person. And that's the only information that's needed to get a user into the system and have them start taking training. But you have one more field there, and that's the group ID. Groups are somewhat flexible in ProTread, and by that I mean that, they don't have to exist, but in order to create a group or start a group, all you have to do is assign one user to a group or create a group for one user. Let's say we wanted to put someone into the orientation group. All I have to do is create a group name for that and add them in. Now that user is now added into the system and they're active, and that can see that they're part of the orientation group ID. Now when I come back out here and I'll go back out to the main menu, I can list all my active groups and I can see I have two groups already. I've got a hazmat group and I've got an orientation group. Now because I've typed in orientation for that demo user's group ID, they're automatically included in that group. An interesting thing about how our system works with groups and specifically assignments, when we add users to groups, all of the assignments associated with that group now apply to that user automatically, meaning that you don't have to reassign lessons every time you add someone into a group. The nice thing about this is you can have an orientation group pre-set up with assignments already existing, and then as you add new employees, you simply move them from one group to another group. In other words, you hire on a whole new group of 10 or 20 or how many ever drivers, you add them into the system with the orientation group ID, and now when they log into the ProTread system for the first time, they'll see all of the lessons assigned to the orientation group. So let's go look at what that looks like. Of course, I can assign lessons to a specific user ID. I can type in that user's ID, and in this case, I'll use Aaron. That's a user ID that I've already set up. And this shows me a list of all the lesson categories and the lessons within those. So if Aaron had an issue and I wanted him to be remediated in a specific way, or I just wanted to assign training that was focused directly at him. Let's say he just started into driving flatbeds. I could assign that flatbed lesson, and when that user logs in, he'll see that lesson assigned to him. Let me go back out here though, and I want to show you the group ID real quick. When I go into group ID assignment, I can see my two groups listed. This menu is automatically generated based on the groups that you've assigned to individuals already. So as you create groups, simply by entering users, these groups automatically populate in the system. No other action is required on your part. I'm going to use my orientation group as an example. Let's say when a driver comes in or a new employee comes into the company and I'm doing an orientation, we do deal with hazmat, even to a small extent, so we're going to assign the GHS or Global Harmonization System training. We're also going to assign some basic lessons on defensive driving and some space management and speed management. Now the nice thing about this too is there's no other action required on my part. Everything in the ProTread system happens as real time as possible, or as possible as we can make it. Meaning that right now, those lessons that I've just clicked and are now green, indicated as green, are live in the system for that user. So any user that logs in right now using the orientation, or that's a member of the orientation group ID, sees those lessons as assigned. And if I want to remove that assignment, all I do is I click that lesson again, and it no longer appears on their menu. All this happens in real time. I can select entire categories of lessons the same way, or deselect entire categories. So we make it very quick to assign or unassign lessons as needed. So don't be afraid of using this. Simply click through and make sure all the green ones are checked that you want, and you'll be in great shape. With that said, I'm going to return back out here to the menu, and I'm going to use another user real quick, and then I'm going to show you what some of that looks like. I'm going to run our compliance report, and specifically for my hazmat group. When I generate that report, what we're doing is we're looking at each lesson that we've assigned. Now in this case, my hazmat group, I've set up the 4 hazmat lessons that are required for that, and it shows me what date I actually assigned those on. Now, Here I can see that Aaron User is very conscientious, and he's already completed 3 of his 4 lessons. But I can see that he has not completed his hazmat security awareness lesson yet. So I can either choose to go in and nag him about that, or send this list out as appropriate to terminal managers or whatever is necessary. I can also do something else with this, which is somewhat helpful. A lot of lessons, specifically hazmat ones, aren't required every year, but every 3 years. Lots of different lessons have different training requirements and time requirements. So I can specify a compliance date range, meaning that if I need to know all of the people that are about to expire on their hazmat certification, I can do a report that shows me those people that are outside of that date range. So let's say, and this is somewhat fictitious, I went back to the beginning of the year and said that all of the people that need to take hazmat should have taken it between the first of the year and March 31st. Anybody that's not within that date range needs to take it. And now we can see that Aaron Purvis did not complete the lessons in that required time.
Slacker.
He's a bit of a slacker. So then I can go on, and that's my list of people that needs to be, or needs to complete that training. Now, if I expand that to a more appropriate date range, Aaron's no longer a slacker, and he's on top of it. Now, like I said, everything in the system is pretty much real time, so I'm going to log in as Aaron. Excuse me here. And I can see that I have 1 lesson in progress still. There's that pesky hazmat security awareness. And I can see all these other lessons are complete. This is from the user side, so I can see as the user I've logged in. That's still an in-progress lesson, and I'm currently on page 13. I've completed all these others, and it shows me the date that I last completed them on. I'm going to complete that lesson. Now I can click it either from either place on the menu. But we'll complete that last page because I'm right there.
In this lesson, we've discussed some of the security risks involved in transporting hazardous materials and the different ways to reduce those risks. A secure transportation system is vital for national safety, economic growth, and protection of its citizens. It's also good for our national morale and reduces the risk of catastrophic events. Terrorist attacks can take on many forms, from sabotage to contamination. It's essential to know who to trust and to be on the watch for unusual events or suspicious behavior. If you haul placarded loads, you should know the security procedures contained in your company's hazmat security plan. Unsure whether or not your company has a plan? Ask your supervisor to find out. This information is vital to your safety. With each placarded load you haul, remember, it's always better to be safe than sorry. By recognizing potential security targets, carefully monitoring the security of your own load, and reporting suspicious activity, you can help us all sleep a little easier.
So now I've obviously completed this lesson, and I can click the stop button, and the lesson will register my progress.
By the way, that is one of our largest, most frequent issues in terms of user support that we run into, is where we'll hear from one of you that one of your drivers completed a lesson, but it's not showing up as complete. What they need to make sure they do is they get all the way through that and click that yes button, because if you miss that, it doesn't register that last screen as complete, and therefore the whole thing isn't complete. Just a little tip.
Yeah, they end up left on the last page of the lesson, and it doesn't actually store the completion. They don't have to complete the whole thing again, as I did here. They just have to finish that last page and actually click stop. So now you can see here my in-progress lesson went away automatically, and my hazmat group assigned lessons all register as complete now. Now back over here on the admin side of things, I refresh my list, and I can see that just now Aaron Purvis completed his final hazmat lesson. I can do the same thing with my orientation group. Of course, I can see here who's completed anything. Tom, of course, has not. He's kind of a slacker, but we'll deal with that later. And of course, if I had any site assigned lessons, those would show up as well. let me walk you through that real quick. Lessons are assigned to a site ID the same way. And like I said before, everything is in real time. So in other words, if you wanted to assign everyone in your company JHS training, it's now live for everyone within the company. And if I come back over here to the admins or to the user side of things and I refresh, now I see another category of lessons. Northwest Trucking assigned. Northwest Trucking is my fictional company, and I see that that's an assigned lesson now, site-wide or company-wide. Now with that, I'm going to show you a few other things on the admin side of things. I'm going to unassign that lesson because we don't really need it. Return to the menu here. There's two different ways of getting reports on assignments and lessons that have been taken. The easiest way that we've set up is the compliance report. And as I've showed you, if you want to see who's completed a lesson within a group and lessons assigned to that, and who's in compliance and who's not, this is probably the quickest and easiest way to do it. It shows all the assignments and it shows all the users that are part of that group and what their standing is on that lesson. But let's say I wanted to see an individual user's progress. I can do that as well. I can come in here to the reports menu and I can build a report. I can look for a specific lesson, but I can also look for any lesson specifically for any group. Now I'll use my hazmat group again, and I'm going to generate a report on that. Now this shows me all of the lessons taken, not just hazmat lessons, for everyone within that group. So I may have assigned training, or my drivers may have taken training separate from what was an actual assignment. And that's important for me to look up as well. And of course, we have lots of different certificates for these as well. And I should mention this just quickly because we did talk about hazmat. We do have a special certificate that shows based on hazmat or completion of all 4 of the federally required hazmat lessons, in addition to any company-specific training plan. And I can still look for a specific user. So I'm going to do that as well here, to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. When I generate a report, here is all of the training that Aaron has, user ID Aaron or Aaron Purvis has completed. And I can see that he also went above and beyond and did more than just his hazmat training. He also completed emergency maneuvers and accident procedures. Now those lessons could have been assigned specifically or ones that I told him just verbally to do. We have a few other options as well that I'd like to just talk about briefly. If you're interested in more information on some of this, or you think there may be a better way to use the system, or you'd like some coaching or some tips on how to use the system, we have several links along the side that helps with that. We've got some tips and advice and some white papers and that sort of thing. We also have several web services. So if you have an HR system or a driver management system already that is capable of tying into other systems, we would love to talk to you because we've got the ability through our web services and APIs to automatically update all of your users in our system in real time based on information that we can get or collect from your HR system. If you add and remove drivers to the system, managing groups and all of that can all be done automatically for you as well. So that's not something we can really go into over a webinar or a webcast like this, but if you're interested, go ahead and send us an email or give us a phone call and we'll walk you through that. And with that, I think I've covered it.
All right. This is Tom again. And the last thing that we're going to cover here in the last 5 minutes are just a few ideas for different groups that you might use and what lessons might be in them. I got an email just this morning from a soon-be client, I hope, and about some lessons for some specific CSA violations. So let's talk a little bit about some of these different groups. And I'm going to go to our website because I just posted something about this. Hopefully everybody's been to our website before. Always lots of interesting articles in there. Lots of interesting articles. Emphasis on interesting. I'm just saying that because my boss is sitting here. Anyway, so here's a few different courses or groups that you might use and courses that you might put into them. One thing that you should really be thinking about as you're creating these groups is how it's sort of like the root cause of why somebody needs to be in this group. And so I want everybody just to kind of keep that in the back of their head, the idea of the root cause. So and we'll walk through these groups. I apologize for just using our website doing this, but it's easiest. So inexperienced drivers was one of the first groups that we came up with. You might want to give it a different name. People probably don't like being called inexperienced, but we call them green, the green group. But there are some basic regulations for entry-level driver training, and if you're hiring somebody straight out of school or maybe somebody with less than a year's worth of experience, you want to make sure that they have taken these courses. And so those are driver qualifications, driver wellness, hours of service, and we've got both a regular hours of service and then one for trucks without a sleeper berth, and then whistleblower protection. You'll also note down here the 6-month intensive training plan for new drivers. There's a few other courses that you might consider there. Another group that you might consider is experienced drivers here. We have found in talking to a lot of our clients that drivers with a lot of experience, it's certainly good for them to go back over and have some refresher training. But on the other hand, that's where you're going to get more complaints about training that's boring or it's not relevant to them or whatever. And so we would suggest stuff that is more advanced or more regulatory in nature so that they have a real understanding of the why you're asking them to do some of these things. And so some examples of this would be CSA overview, GHS, and hazard communication. It's essentially the same thing. GHS is the new hazard communication. Our new roadside inspections lesson is a great one. It really gets drivers to sort of be in the shoes of what a state patrol person is looking for. Hours of service, obviously we've got new regulations that you want to make sure that your guys and gals are aware of. And then even some like really specific stuff. We've got a lesson on air brakes, pre-trip inspections, things like that. And then driver wellness. Somebody who's been on the road for a number of years may want to be rethinking sort of how they're living their lifestyle in terms of diet and exercise. Hazmat, obviously, Aaron spoke quite a bit about that. So we've got all the 4 lessons that are useful for getting ready for the recertification process. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these remediation issues. Some of the most common remediations that we get are actually pre-trip inspections, but the ones that are most important to you tend to be unsafe driving violations. Speeding, it can often be a symptom of a lot of other issues, and so you know, you might go through and read this article, but some lessons you might try here: speed management, space management, CSA overview so that they know the consequences, fuel management for the financial consequences of speeding. We've found that road rage is actually a really great lesson to share with drivers. It really emphasizes the fact that they are a professional and that the other automobile drivers out on the road are more amateurs, and it's their responsibility to sort of be the knights of the road. Rear end collision avoidance, driver distractions, defensive driving, trip planning, all things that can get to more the root cause of why a driver was speeding. And we are really running short on time here. In fact, it looks like we've actually gone over. So if we start to lose people, I apologize for going over. In fact, I'm going to cut this short since this link on our website is going to be available to everybody. I'm just going to flip back over to our PowerPoint, I hope. Maybe not. Control. Hey, there we go. So, and I'll keep going on these other lists in just a second here, but before I do, I just wanted to share these email addresses. I guess you guys already have it because you got a lot of emails from me. You can email Aaron A. Purvis at instructiontech.net or myself at tom@instructiontech.net. These groups that I'm talking about, they are currently on the website. You're more than welcome to please go take a look at them. I'm also going to be sending them out via email tomorrow. The link to the webinar recording is also going to be in that same email. So please feel free to share both of these with people on your management team, your safety team, your training team. We really believe that this lesson assignment feature is something that is very powerful and can really help you get the most out of your ProTread investment. So with that, if you want to sign out, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to hop back over to this list of things just for a few seconds, but I wanted to get that, give you that contact information.
Can I interject real quick?
Please.
I'd love also if if people send us emails on how not only how they're currently using the system, but tips or any suggestions that you have for improvements to the system or ways that we can make it better for you. We'd love to hear it. Like I said at the beginning, all the changes and the updates we make, all of those are based on client feedback. We want it to be the simplest, easiest system for you to use and the most effective in supporting you in the job that you need to do. So any feedback we get, we greatly appreciate, but positive or negative. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say thank you too for everybody that wants to go, but I am going to talk for just a few more minutes about some of these groups. And again, please email us with specific feedback. That'd be great. Let's see. Oops, scrolling the wrong way. Logbook violation remediation. Remediation just means fixing in the event that for whatever reason you don't know that. We tend to see two major root causes for hours of service and logbook violations. One is that with EOBR so ubiquitous everywhere, but there are so many different types of logbook technologies that it's not uncommon for drivers to not really be particularly talented at dealing with that piece of technology. So training on how to use a particular EOBR is something that if you're interested in and you'd like us to work with you or the manufacturer to get some training and specifically how to use that device, we'd love to be doing some custom training for that. But oftentimes, it's simply an issue of not knowing the consequences, not knowing what the rules are, and even oftentimes if a driver has gone over, it can be simply a matter of they didn't know that there was an exception for weather or for traffic. Now, granted, those are very specific exceptions, but it could be that that was why a driver was over their hours of service. But these lessons, the CSA overview, the hours of service, logbooks, roadside inspections, and driver disqualifications are all great lessons to have queued up for your drivers that do end up with an hours of service violation. Another thing too in terms of hours of service to look at is, and this requires a really open culture within your fleet, which I realize is sometimes there and sometimes not. Sometimes your dispatch is making unrealistic expectations of your drivers. And so having your dispatch team go through some of these hours of service lessons is a really important education piece for them. Because when we were at a trade show recently, we heard from a state trooper saying that they are doing more and more investigations that are going back to headquarters rather than just stopping with the drivers. And they are levying some major fines on companies because the driver is basically being asked to do something illegal, or they get really close to home, and so they're like, oh, just go ahead and risk it. You're only, you know, an hour away or whatever it is. So you want to really make sure that your dispatch understands what the legal requirements are, because some dispatch systems actually don't do a good job of actually taking into account hours of service. So equipment violation remediation. Our good friends across the river in Portland, Vigilo, had a really great study that found 7 of the 10 most common CSA violations could be stopped with a pre-trip inspection, which is pretty staggering when you think about it. So the lessons that you might assign here, they really depend on maybe what the issues that the driver had. Pre-trip inspection, trip planning, roadside inspections, DVIR pre and post-trip inspections for that driver, preventative maintenance, air brakes, cargo securement is a really important one. And then when you get into things like coupling, flatbed safety, and tanker pre-trip, those might be something where you're assigning them to a particular user based on what their particular job is and the type of routes and equipment that they're using. I also saw recently a report from an insurance group saying that the most frequent type of payout that they had to do with these little scrapes and bumps and crashes that happen inside parking lots and loading areas at the customer's site. They're not the most expensive, but when you add up just simply the frequency of these types of crashes, these little bumps and scrapes, as I make the joke here, they're going to turn your hair gray entirely too soon. And you people are entirely too handsome to be having gray hair. Lots of groans here. Avoiding fixed objects, backing and docking enhanced. It's such an important skill that we have 2 issues here, or 2 lessons here. Driver distractions really emphasizes the notion of slowing down, don't rush, do one thing at a time, get out and look, the whole thing. And then trailer loading and unloading is also good. There's also one on landing gear, making sure that landing gear is properly deployed. Another lesson for your folks that are going through warehouses, and most of your drivers probably are. You may have employees who are just warehouse workers. We have we've got like 20 some odd lessons, maybe more, on OSHA and warehouse. And these are really important courses to go through. Probably, you know, and all of them are sort of emphasizing that whole idea of having your head on a swivel. But workplace awareness, safe lifting for the driver, safe operation of manual pallet jacks, back injury prevention, liftgate safety, and trailer loading and unloading. And these, again, are all things that it may depend on the type of work and the type of roles that you have your drivers doing. We also have some forklift lessons. Now, it's really important to reinforce this point. OSHA has specific requirements for getting a forklift license that these lessons don't meet. And the reason is because having a forklift license requires a practical test and in-person training. And we're on the internet. But that said, these are great either as refreshers for your drivers, for your forklift drivers, people that have a license, or for people that are getting ready to get their license, maybe people that are moving up into the forklift world. So we've got those 3 lessons here. All right, and the last 3 here. Medium duty truck, for all of the following courses that you see here, avoiding fixed objects down here through winter driving, we have lessons that are specific to medium duty trucks. These use visuals that are more urban, that talk about tighter spaces where the trucks are not articulated, the point of view is a little bit lower, and it's talking about the sorts of things that these people have to deal with on a regular basis. This is a really growing segment of the trucking market. We're finding more and more of our over-the-road fleets, not just our private fleets, are getting in more into medium-duty trucks because it allows them to have drivers with more home time. Essentially, they're shrinking their hub and spoke systems to allow more of these medium-duty trucks. Last, I guess not quite last. Here we go. We got also tanker. Not a whole lot to say here, other than we've got stuff for the personal protective equipment, how to do a pre-trip specifically on a tanker, as well as driving tips, defensive driving, speed, and space management for avoiding tanker rollovers. For those of you with tankers in your fleet, again, this training done on a regular basis will dramatically reduce your incidents with these. That said, drivers who deal with tankers, in our experience, they tend to be a lot more experienced and safer. Last one, rules and regulations. Again, as I say here, they're not exactly fun. I don't know a lot of people that terribly love government rules and regulations, but they do help new and experienced drivers understand why you're asking people to do the things that you're doing a certain way. And if nothing else, these lessons can go a long way to eliminating the griping about both training as well as the sorts of things that you're asking people to do. So if you are rolling out a new initiative, and so for example, was it 2 years ago when they banned handheld cell phones, mobile devices, the driver distractions lesson was a very popular lesson, and it simply went through and explained what the rule was and why it was important. So the lessons that you might consider putting into the regulations and rules section are those. And the last thing I'm going to talk about real quickly, I'm not going to show you the video, maybe you've all seen it before, is orientation. Whenever, with turnover in the industry being so high, having some basic expectations set for your drivers before they come in, before they drive a single foot in one of your trucks, is a great way to, again, sort of set expectations for their level of safety. It also saves you a great deal of time. You're not going to get away from having face-to-face orientation. You have to familiarize drivers with the equipment. You have to cover standard operating procedures, things of that nature, and we're more than willing to help you create some custom training for those things. But there are some really basic things that you want to make sure that everybody coming in knows, and that could be defensive driving, that could be fuel management, safe lifting. Again, all depends on sort of the roles and responsibilities that you're putting on that driver. And doing it online saves you from having to have some HR person or a driver manager spending a couple hours, every 2 weeks with a new crop of people. Instead, they can focus on the face-to-face time doing things that really matter, the things that are variable, the things that that you just simply can't do online. And we're realistic enough to know that there are some sorts of training that you just need to do face-to-face. So if you're ever interested in that, please reach out to Rich or to myself or to Marius, whoever your account manager is, and we can look at what it takes to do some custom training for orientation. And with that, we're only 15 minutes over. Only.
That's marketing for you.
Yeah, that's marketing for you. You like how I sold that?
IT was really concise. I like that.
Yeah, well, that's good. So again, with that, we're all done. If you want to tune out now, it's a great time to do that. Our email addresses are up here. You all have my email address already, I'm sure. Again, the group, this article was up on the website already. The link to the webinar recording will be in the email that comes out to you tomorrow. And I think that's all we've got. So thank you so much for your time today. And with that, we are done. Look forward to talking to you all again in the future. Bye now.
Thank you.